Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, this bill, or a bill substantially like it, has come up before, and it enjoyed substantial bipartisan support, and now that has changed. Why is that? It is because it has become evident that the majority seeks for political reasons to conflate the extraordinarily serious issue of domestic terrorism with half of the country, with their political opposition. It is evident that the administration has pursued a concocted attack on the credibility, on the First Amendment activity of parents who were engaging in First Amendment protected activism in school boards. The administration has engaged in a deceitful refusal to account for that activity, and whistleblower accounts have now revealed that indeed FBI agents went to interrogate parents over their activism. When members of the majority recite events in every one of their comments today, they are selective and mischaracterized. They do not mention the Brooklyn subway shooter. They do not mention the Wisconsin firebombing. They do not mention Waukesha, Wisconsin. They do not mention Boulder, Colorado. Why do they not? Why is it so consistent that those are not mentioned? It is exactly the same issue in which there is always a focus on a particular type of hate, white supremacy. Let me tell you something. I have no hesitancy to say that the twisted butcher in Buffalo, New York was a white supremacist. More than that, it's evident that he was mentally ill. That does not mean that Republicans writ large are domestic terrorists or white supremacists. It is a smear, and it is deliberate. Worst of all, this preoccupation to the exclusion of all else that smears the right, smears people center-right as racists, white supremacists, is a device, a demagogic device to distract from abysmal policy disasters led and created by advocacy and policy of Democrats. The defund police debacle that led to 30% increases in homicides, not as tragic as they are 10 or 20 killings of people by domestic terrorists on occasions, but 5,000 additional homicides a year. And do you know what? 65% of those are suffered by black Americans. 3,250 additional killings in 2020, more in 2021. An abandonment of the southern border that has resulted in a flood of fentanyl into the country, so that you see mass killings by exposure, by drugs laced with fentanyl. Poison coming in and killing. They know the figure of 100,000, they tell me, is not current. It's not even getting at the essence of the problem. And under those circumstances, and having committed that sort of policy malpractice upon the American people with those abysmal results, Democrats would bring a partisan bill to the floor and conflate the egregious evil of domestic terrorism with some kind of a political smear of your political opposition. What would it take to do that? This bill should be bipartisan because it is promoted, it is brought, it is worked out with the political opposition. This problem is too significant to be cheapened as a political stunt. And with that, Madam Speaker, I reserve.
Gentleman from North Carolina reserves. The gentleman from New York.
Madam Speaker, I'm prepared to close.
The gentleman from New York reserves. The gentleman from North Carolina is recognized.
No.
Gentleman from...
I'm prepared to close, I said.
We're prepared to close.
The gentleman from North Carolina is recognized.
It is hard to overstate how concerning the problem is that has so invaded our politics. We've seen in so many ways institutional norms be trampled underfoot in this Congress. The metal detectors at the door are one example, but they go on and on and on. The hearing in the Judiciary Committee today aimed at intimidating the United States Supreme Court while it's in the midst of a particular decision is another one. Concepts about packing the court, ideas by Democrats to pack the court by the chairman of the Judiciary Committee. They go on and on and on. This one might be the worst. You wonder what in the world the majority may be thinking to turn the issue of terrorism, any form of terrorism, into a partisan cudgel. It is beyond belief. If this issue returned to a nonpartisan posture, you would find that Republicans would be pleased to join it. But it has been grossly distorted and turned into a political weapon. That should never happen in this country, should never happen in this Congress. This bill should be defeated. I yield back.
Gentleman from North Carolina yields back his time. The gentleman from New York.